Hello, this is the Green Corn Rebellion Show. I'm Gregory Harden II, and today I am here with Tegan Malone, who is a teacher and avid cyclist, and she is running for state representative in District 95, which is like the
That's
Midwest
correct.
City area, correct?
That's correct. But it's pronounced Tegan, just like
Tegan.
Megan. Yeah,
Really? I did not know
really.
that. Okay.
Most people get it incorrect just because that T at the very beginning is such a hard consonant that they really want to put that emphasis on it,
hmm
which is understandable. But yeah, it's Tegan.
Whoa, 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 whoa. Stop what you're doing. Okay. If you like this video and you like the other content on my channel, please hit the like button on this video. Also, go hit subscribe like right now. And also, when you hit subscribe, click the bell so you can get notifications whenever I put out a new video. So, thanks. All right, enjoy the rest of the video. Okay, I'll try to remember that because
Okay, no worry.
I wasn't expecting that one. Usually, when I butcher someone's name, it's because I forgot to ask them what it
Yeah,
was beforehand.
no,
And
it's
then,
okay.
yeah, but no, you're good. It's good. It's good.
Yeah,
I'm good. Yeah. But no,
absolutely.
first question is where are you from and where did you grow up?
That's a great question. I was born right here in Midwest City at Midwest City Regional Hospital. I grew up right here in Midwest City, right around Midwest Regional Hospital. But born and raised here, spent my entire life here until I was married for a little while. I say a little while, almost 20 years, but we did a stint with the Air Force, and that's the only time that I haven't lived in Oklahoma was when I was supporting my spouse during his time in the Air Force.
All right. So what made you want to become a teacher?
Mhm. That's a great question. I'm going to keep saying that's a great question. I need to get off that spiel right there. Sorry. I became a teacher partially because it was a great opportunity for me to support my kids and to support our military lifestyle as we were moving across the country. We joined the Air Force right before I finished my bachelor's degree. And that kind of shifted my plans for my life a little bit. I went ahead and finished my bachelor's degree in liberal studies from the University of Oklahoma and found out pretty quickly that there wasn't a lot you can do with a liberal studies degree because it wasn't very focused. After a little bit, I decided to go on back to school and get my post-baccalaureate teaching certificate and then my master's degree in teaching because I timed it perfectly. My youngest son was going to be starting kindergarten and I could go do my student teaching at the same time and I wouldn't have to worry about childcare and all those fun things that really kind of hinder people from entering the workforce sometimes. And teaching was a great opportunity for me to do that. I substitute taught in California for a little while, substitute taught in Texas for a little while, substitute taught in Mississippi for a little while, and then got my teaching certificate and was able to get a classroom down there. So that's how I got started in teaching.
It's cool.
Yeah.
I'm currently substitute teaching and have been for the last 2 years. So yeah,
It's a tough gig.
it is.
It
Yeah.
really is. And people don't realize how difficult teaching is. And then to come in as a guest teacher, like what you're doing, is a very difficult thing because if you don't have a rapport with the kids,
Yeah.
the older they get,
Yeah.
the more those behaviors really come out. And, we were all there at one point in time. We all remember that, that person doesn't know what they're talking about or doing, or it's out of the routine. And so people don't want to participate appropriately. So being a guest teacher in a school is probably a little bit more difficult than being an everyday classroom teacher, just in that respect. So kudos for you to do it and stick with it for so long. I know we need people to do it right now.
Yeah. Episodes of the Green Corn Rebellion Show are sponsored by Oklahoma Progress Now. Oklahoma Progress Now is a 501c4 organization focused on building progressive power in Oklahoma. Their primary efforts are on developing progressive content for a 21st century audience, coalition, and capacity building across progressive organizations and causes, and working to see elected leaders who are more responsive to their constituents and the needs of the many. Areas of focus include progressive messaging and communications, coalition building and resource sharing, and focused progressive policy goals. You can check out their Twitch live streams, and they go live on Facebook at noon, Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. Please support this organization. It's a really great organization. It's just getting started here in Oklahoma. Thank you. Now enjoy the rest of the video. It's been interesting, especially since I've subbed mostly out in Shawnee area, Shawnee and Bethel, but I've also been subbing in Oklahoma City as well. And it's been interesting to see the differences between the different school districts and the different people and the kids, and like getting to know all types of different people and how they act and how they interact with things and what I like ask them, like, what about boring subjects would make it more interesting for you? Because I'm going to become a history teacher, so I kind of have to know that.
Oh, you're walking into the minefield on that one, aren't you?
Yeah. But yeah, let's see. So what got you interested in cycling? And could you tell me a little bit about what all you've done with your cycling activism?
Oh gosh, yes. Well, my dad tried to teach me how to ride a bicycle when I was 6 years old, and I witnessed my younger sister fall and get a nice case of road rash, and it scared me to death, and I didn't pick my bicycle back up for another 6 years. Finally, at the age of 12, I learned how to ride a bike. I was a late bloomer in that respect. Kind of pedaled off and on here and there, nothing really big. Did some nice big road rides around town with my dad and stuff growing up, but wasn't until we had moved out to California that I really started. My children, my oldest was an only child at that point, but started taking him out quite a bit, and we would ride around the little parks and stuff. We lived close to Vacaville, California. Rode a little bit more in Mississippi. Wasn't until I got back here, my dad kind of encouraged me to try racing out. I was terrible. I'm still terrible, but that's okay because I love to do it and it gets me outside, and I've got a great community of friends to be involved with. I get to increase my standard of living by making sure that my health is taken care of, and all the great, incredible benefits that you get from cycling. A friend of mine named Chris Southern told me that there was an organization called Oklahoma Earth Bike Fellowship, OEF for short. OEF is an organization that builds and maintains and advocates for mountain bike trails all across the state. He told me that they were in need of board members, and he knows that I was a great organizer and had a passion for cycling. So I decided to become a board member, and within a few short years had become the president of the organization. When I started with the organization, we were kind of, like most nonprofits, they go through an ebb and a flow, and we were down to only managing 3 trails at the time. And by the time I was done, we were managing in various stages of production there, about 22 trails. That number's changed again now just because of COVID and the ebb and the flow of leadership changes and stuff. But got involved with OEF. Because of my involvement with OEF, got involved with the Oklahoma Trails Advisory Board, which is a grant giving board that is run at the offices of tourism and recreation. And it administers the federal recreational trails grant program funds for the state of Oklahoma. So that's been a really interesting thing. I've got to witness some projects, some really great ideas that people have all over our state to increase the recreational amenities for people, from everything from mountain bike trails, hiking trails, to just wonderful, wonderful projects like the botanical gardens up at OSU. We even funded to put lights at river parks near and dear to my heart here in Midwest City. We've got a great little mountain bike trail called SKIP, SCIP, which is the Soldier Creek Industrial Park. And it basically took a piece of unused floodplain that the city owned, which they weren't going to be able to build anything on it. And they have created something that is arguably one of the best beginner trails, if not in the Oklahoma City metro area, but in the state. It's great. It's a great low barrier way to get people out and exercising. My involvement with OEF lasted about 6 years, and it was time to hand the reins over because it was a volunteer gig. And I had been a board member on Bike Oklahoma, which is right now it's a 501c4 organization, but it represents all cycling across the state. January 1, I took over as president and trying to get my legs underneath me with this one. We've got a lot of great work to do. We had a lot of great people in our committees, especially our government committee this last year. They have done some incredible outreach work with our legislators, and we're able to get House Bill 1770 passed. And that is something that we're really stoked about because it makes cycling safer for people across the state. And as we have seen with COVID, people have really started to take it up again. The numbers are increasing. And so we've got a duty to make sure that they're safe. So it's a great way for me to be involved and to help my fellow Oklahomans.
Okay. So what made you want to run for state representative?
Well, I could tell you that I'm a middle-aged woman, and we have this propensity to let our frustrations with things kind of bubble over, and we really want to be active whenever we get to be a certain age sometimes. I have always had an interest in politics. As a matter of fact, I called my friend Ben from high school when I decided to run, because I was just calling friends and letting them know, see what kind of support I could have, if it was a good idea or not. And he got to giggling. He said, I remember in our AP government class, our senior year in high school, you made the announcement to the entire room that you were going to be the first female governor of Oklahoma. Well, I kind of missed that mark. Just a little bit, but maybe there's some plans in the future. Who knows? If we can make a good run at this, and people feel like I'm serving their interests well and serving the state well, and trying to do what's best for all Oklahomans, there might be a future in it. But for right now, I want to focus and make sure that some of these things that we have been telling our legislators for years that we want to happen or we don't want to happen are preserved or done away with. And I don't feel like we're being listened to as much as they could. And so I think this is a real opportunity for me to bring my knowledge and my expertise and my networking and my organization and all those great skills that I have, or people have told me I've had, bring them to the table and try to get some positive work done.
All right. Wow. When was it? I'm trying to think, when would this have been when you said you wanted to be first female governor? Like, would this have been like
in 1994 or 1995? Okay. It's been a long time, way before Miss Fallon.
Yeah, well, I think that was like right before she became lieutenant governor. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it was that's funny though. So on your website, it says that Oklahoma has some of the most progressive cycling laws in the country. What exactly does that mean? And could you tell me what some of those laws are? Because I have never heard anyone say that before.
I know, it's kind of a strange thing. It's kind of low-hanging fruit too. The governor, had that initiative to make us a top 10 state in certain areas. And I don't think that he has quite realized, or his administration has quite realized yet, that by passing House Bill 1770 last year, that we do have some of the most progressive cycling laws in the country, arguably probably in the top 10 of cycling laws. House Bill 1770 did a few things. A few years ago, there was a bill that was passed, lovingly referred to as a dead red light, and it had instructions in there for motorcycles and for bicycles. And at the last minute, as happens sometimes, When it's in committee, some language gets stricken from a bill. Bicycles got stricken from the bill. What that bill enabled people to do is whenever you roll up to a red light on a motorcycle and the magnetic sensors don't register your motorcycle, it stays red and will never turn green for you. Well, the law was written that if you are in such a scenario, if you have sat there for a long time and determined that that light's not going to change, and you look both ways and you ensure that it's safe for you to cross, then you can proceed through a dead red light. Well, they took cyclists out of that. Cyclists on a bicycle, those bicycles are much lighter, and some of them don't even have a whole lot of metal on them for the sensors to pick up. So changing the law to add bicycling back into that enabled people to go ahead and pass through those red lights. Now that's a great thing right there. And that was an easy fix thing. But what else it did is it also allowed us to create something called the Idaho Stop here in Oklahoma. There's a big history there. It's called the Idaho Stop because that's the state that it originated in. But what it is if a cyclist comes up to a stop sign, not a red light, a stop sign, and determines that it is safe to proceed, and there's not oncoming traffic and stuff like that, that they can maybe just slow down and then push through the stop sign. There's a whole bunch of scientific information out there that shows the numbers that this is a safer way for people to be on the road. City governments get this information. People know this in the transportation industry. I know there are a lot of people out there that get irate whenever they see cyclists on the road, or when they see people in spandex, or whenever they think cyclists are breaking the law, which, up until last year, cyclists were breaking the law if they were running through stop signs. But now it's legal, and they can come up to and roll through that stop sign. It saves the traffic from slowing down so much, because when a cyclist comes to a stop, it takes a lot longer for them to get going up to a comfortable speed for traffic to be able to go around. So having those kinds of things makes us pretty progressive. I think there's only like 10 states in the entire United States that have passed something similar. So it increases the safety for people on the roads, both on bicycles and in motorized vehicles. We also passed a couple of things in HB 1770. It's against the law to harass cyclists. So if people are throwing things at cyclists, rolling up behind them and honking to try to scare them because they think it's funny, those things are illegal. And police departments have jurisdiction to cite people for those kinds of offenses. There was a little hiccup not too long ago. A couple of municipalities, even though it was written into the law that this was the law of the state and all municipalities must, do what the law says, that there were a couple of them that thought that their city ordinances superseded this state law. But we have been working with these municipalities to make sure that they understand the letter and the intent of the law, and that it is enforced appropriately, because like we said, we didn't pass this to give cyclists extra rights on the road. We passed this to make cycling safer, to make it safer for motorists being around cyclists, to protect everybody while they're out on the road.
Okay.
There's a lot going on in there.
Yeah, because that's something I've never really thought too much about. I've just only thought of bicycling as like, oh, in some places they have their own little lane, and some places they don't. That's all I've ever thought about whenever it comes to cycling laws. So on your website, you also talk about the importance of taking care of our veterans and military families. Could you talk more about the importance of doing this?
Yes. I know just about everybody in the United States has somebody in their family that has been a military member. And, a lot of people my age can claim that one or both sets of grandparents have, supported the military throughout their life. Growing up here in Midwest City, you are very hard pressed to find anyone who's not attached to the military in some way, shape, or form. My grandfather, my father's father, they lived in Fletcher, Oklahoma, which is down by Lawton, and had the first Ford dealership in the state of Oklahoma. And this all ties into the military stuff. Ford engines back at that time were the exact same as the engines that were in the aircraft. So when they were building Tinker, there was a lot of opportunity here in Midwest City for people to come and have a good paying job, and to support, the country's efforts in, protecting our borders and protecting our people and all that good stuff. So Grandpa came up here and began work in the Navy here at Tinker, and worked on aircraft engines, and then became a civilian. And then my mother's father was stationed here in the late 60s. I don't know the exact date on this, but the late 60s, early 70s. That's when my parents met, and Granddad retired from the Air Force. And then, everybody was working out at Tinker as a civilian for a while. I've also been a military spouse. I have been that person waiting in an airport with my 2 young children for my spouse to come home. I've been, that person who has to, keep a t-shirt close by and not ever wash it because my spouse was gone and I missed the smell of them. I had to, take care of my kids. I understand it from that perspective. I know it's incredibly difficult being an active duty person. I know it's incredibly difficult being away. And I know there are certain things that go along with that I'm never going to understand fully because I haven't lived that experience. But speaking as someone who is a granddaughter of people who served and a daughter of someone who served as a civilian at Tinker for his entire career, and then as a military wife, I understand those perspectives. And I know these people, they give up so much of their life. It's not just the person who is active duty or even, reserves who is bearing the brunt of all of the change that goes on by being in the military or by being a veteran or anything like that. It's the entire family. There's a lot of worry. There's a lot of disruption to lives. There's a lot of heartache and loss that can go on. And so giving people who have made this sacrifice to support us, to keep us safe, to fight for our freedoms, giving them the utmost respect and taking care of them is absolutely 100% the right thing to do. And it should never be a political game when it comes to that. We should take care of our people who take care of us, period.
So also on your website, you talk about the importance of funding higher education. This is something that I feel like a lot of people don't think about when they talk about the state legislature, because they have the power to fund our colleges, universities, and also make tuition cost less for students. That's also something I'm emphasizing in my campaign as a college student, as well as someone who's running who thinks this needs to be talked about more. But could you talk about the importance of that?
Yes, absolutely. If you look at the data, our state legislature is tasked with spending about 30% of our budget on pre-K to 12 education. That's it, pre-K to 12 education, 30% of our budget. And then when you add in higher education, it gets us closer to around 50% of our budget. So half of the money that our legislature is tasked with spending goes towards education, common education here in Oklahoma, and higher education. So making education affordable for people, if they want to pursue it past their free and appropriate public education, is definitely something that's needed. I took out student loans whenever I went to college. That was my path. That was, I'm not from a rich family. They weren't able to bankroll my college for me. So I took out student loans. And when I became a teacher and learned about student loan repayment programs, that is whenever it got a little bit hairy. And I know that the student loan repayment stuff is a federal issue and not a state, but I had to take out a lot of loans to be able to get the education that I did. And it really straddles people to be able to do the things that they want to do later in life to, provide for their kids, support their communities, do some charity work out in their communities. It kind of ties their hands and being able to do that. So taking a look at ways that we can reduce the costs is definitely something that I want to do. I know, quite a few of our community colleges around here have got some incredible programs going on. I know OCCC does it, but since it's near and dear to my heart and here in my district, Rose State College is a great opportunity for kids. My youngest son, when we moved back to Oklahoma from being in the military, we settled down in Moore, just to be close to my parents, and have since moved back into Midwest City, which was a great opportunity. My youngest son graduated from Carl Albert High School and was able to do concurrent enrollment for 2 years while he was at Carl Albert High School. So he graduated a full semester early from high school and was able to continue on with his free college at Rose State College, and was able to get his associate's degree almost exactly 1 year from graduating from high school. And he graduated in December. So it would have been 6 months after he technically should have graduated from high school. He got his associate's degree. Where else can that happen? That's a great opportunity. That is something that is so incredible. And now looking, this last week, Rose State College has made these great announcements that they've signed transfer agreements with UCO and with OU. So kids aren't going to have to, or I shouldn't say kids, because there are plenty of working adults that go through college programs, but people going through these programs now aren't going to have to worry about if their credits are going to transfer, if it was a waste of money to have taken this class that was really important to them, or, really sung to their heart on something that they were passionate about, if it was a waste of money or not. And, in the end, we want to be frugal with our educational costs, but we also want to get people to be lifelong learners and to continue reaching for new knowledge and learning new things so that they can do the best that they can whenever they're making their decisions to be happy, healthy individuals.
Yeah, like the college funding thing is just so insane to me, because like over the last, I can't remember what the statistics are specifically, but like the way it is we're technically putting in less money per capita than what we were 15 years ago when it comes to higher education. Mm-hmm. So like, I think if you look at the actual raw numbers, it is like a few million more than what it was like in raw numbers, but like per capita, that doesn't really equal out to a lot more money, and like, sure. And especially under the pandemic, where places like UCO have had a drop in students because of the pandemic. So therefore, they've had a drop in tuition because they are not getting tuition from students. So they're having to up the fees and up the tuition for the people who choose to stay. And that's a problem that the state legislature needs to be addressing by giving the colleges more money. So therefore, they don't have to raise tuition in order to make up for the loss of tuition for a year and a half or 2 years of the pandemic. Like, to me, like, that's a huge like issue for me, not just as a college student, but just like in general, because if we want people to stay here in the state, we should want to incentivize them to go to college here and then stay here after they go to college. Because I know some people that are friends of mine who either went to college around the same time I did or are still in college. They're planning on leaving or are going to leave the state of Oklahoma after they graduate. And, like, or high school, even when it came to high school, a lot of people didn't want to go to college simply because, like, oh, it's Oklahoma, so I'm going to leave the state. And so we need to be giving people more of a reason to stay here and, want them to be educated here, because why not?
Absolutely. I agree with you 100% on that. I've got a lot of young people in my life, teenagers, that are looking at their options post high school. And, a couple of them are, choosing career tech, which is an incredible way to get started. And if they want to, they can get college credit while they're doing career tech, even in high school. So if they do choose to go on and further, their academic instruction with a college degree, they can, or they're set up fully to have a great paying job. While I was teaching, I tell kids all the time, if you're thinking about career tech, do it while you're in high school, do it while it's free. Because what will happen is you will be set up to make more than my job right now.
Yeah.
And because they knew teachers didn't make diddly squat compared to, other professions. I've got a master's degree. And if my children were still living at home, I might still qualify for, food stamps. There are plenty of people across the state that are in similar situations like that, just because the pay is not there. So yeah, absolutely. Having affordable opportunities for people to choose what they want to do with the rest of their life. And I say rest of their life because I'm not going to do the same thing for the rest of my life, and you won't either. But get us started, because we do follow our interests. We do seek out those things that make us grow. And I think that's one of the best things that we've got going for us with public education, is that our students are encouraged to follow their hearts, to become lifelong learners. And we have to continually give them those opportunities that whenever they leave the K-12 system, the pre-K-12 system, that they've got those opportunities to further that education and become even stronger people, and make this state, everything that it's meant to be.
Yeah, that's right. So let's see. Along with making sure our public schools and colleges are funded, are there any other concerns that you have within education that you'd like to address?
Yeah, because it's going to be a big thing here pretty soon. It really aggravates me to no end that every year we get these ludicrous proposals for bills that come out. Okay. And it feels like a shell game. It feels like, we're going to give you something completely outrageous, so your focus is going to be on this, so we can slip what we really want underneath the radar. And it feels like this is done very subversively, because I think Oklahomans, everybody I talk to, supports their public schools. Everybody I talk to, they support their public schools. Now, there are people out there that want their kids to go to a private school or want their kids to go to a charter school. Absolutely. But they still say that the necessity is there for our public schools. And what keeps happening here is we keep getting these little things that come through, these little bits of legislation that come through, that steadily chip away at the foundation of this institution. This institution is constitutionally protected in the state of Oklahoma, and yet we are doing everything we possibly can to privatize it. Why? It doesn't make sense, especially when the people living here in this state are saying, this is not what we want. Our legislators are not listening to us. There are some that are up there and they are fighting the good fight, and they're trying to be voices of reason. And I don't say this because I'm running as a Democrat, because I know a lot of the Democrats do support this stuff, but there are people that are Republicans and independents that get up there to the legislature and they say, our people are telling us they don't want this. But for some strange reason, they're trying to push all this stuff through. So the big bill that's coming through right now, and just to talk, I don't know if your listeners have been paying attention to it, but there were a couple of bills that were proposed. One of them was to ban the teaching of SEL skills, and that's social emotional learning skills. And I'm so very sorry right now. If that happened, I would have just gotten in trouble because I said, I'm sorry to you. Saying I'm sorry is a social emotional skill. And they want to outlaw that in elementary school. Seriously, these children are learning how to interact with one another. It's the foundation for everything that they're going to need to be in the workforce. That got everybody in an uproar. And then the next one that got everybody in the uproar was Senator Standridge put forth a bill that would make it easy for people to file a lawsuit against a teacher for teaching anything in a classroom that goes against a student's beliefs. Now, Gregory, I have met you twice now. I feel like I know you just a little bit, but I am never going to know what you believe from day to day, moment to moment, minute to minute. I'm not ever going to know that. So I'm going to be in a minefield in the classroom trying to navigate that.
Yeah.
Those things are big red herring bills. And I understand the purpose of that one. It was modeled off the Texas abortion law. And since they're not getting any pushback saying it's unconstitutional from the Supreme Court yet, that we're going to see a lot of this pop up in a lot of different places. Those bills are scary. They're red herring bills. They'll be lucky if they get out of committee. hopefully they won't get out of committee.
Yeah.
But I think those things and what we're looking towards right now, and I would have to look up the bill right now, but Senator Pugh put forth a bill, and it's basically a voucher bill.
Yeah.
It will basically take public funding away from public schools and give it to private schools. Now, this is the thing right here is, and I know I'm preaching to the choir with you, but public schools have standards of operation. They have distinct ways in which they can spend their funding. They have distinct ways in which the funding even comes in. Everything is audited to a T. Every person knows where every red penny goes that goes to a school district. Our administrative costs are capped by each district. Everything happens and we know what happens. There is a paper trail for everything. But when we start taking these public funds and start giving them to different institutions in the form of vouchers, that money has the potential to be misused. It has the potential for great amounts of fraud. It has so much potential to break the public trust. And, the funding of public schools is meant to make sure that everybody has a great start in their education so that when they get to a point in their life and they can make a decision on what they want to do, the direction they want to go in their life, that they are set up and that they can function in society. I'm not saying that private schools and charter schools will take that away, but their accountability is not there. And when the accountability is not there, then it becomes ripe for fraud. And like we've seen in the last couple of weeks with the state auditor's investigation into Epic charter schools. And, Epic charter schools, it's a great school. There are tons of kids who have done very well in it. And I know teachers that teach there and they love teaching there. And there are a lot of things that we can learn from their model if public schools were allowed to innovate. But we have hand-tied our public schools in a way that we cannot duplicate some of the success that we're seeing in charter schools. Why? Why will they not allow public schools to be innovative in that respect, like they're allowing charter schools to do? And if we start giving money to private schools, it's just an entire can of worms that is going to be opened up, and it does not create equity for everyone. And when we spend public funds, it has to be equitable, and it's not.
Yeah, I think my state senator authored that first bill you were talking about.
Oh, the SEL bill?
Yeah, I think that was Shane Jett. Yeah, I remember that. He authors some interesting bills. Let's just put it at that.
Some people do.
The person who was in that seat before him was Ron Sharp, who was a former teacher, and he beat him in a primary. And yeah, it was disappointing.
Yeah, Ron Sharp was a great legislator. I've had the good fortune to connect with him on social media recently, and I'm learning a lot. Even though he's not in the legislature anymore, I'm still learning a lot from him, and I hope to continue that friendship a bit because he seems like he's an incredible person.
Yeah, he is. It was sad to see him lose in that primary because it was seeing what Shane Jett is doing. It's just,
yeah, that's kind of how I felt whenever we lost Kelly Albright. This is the seat I'm running for. We lost Kelly Albright. She was turning out to be a pretty fantastic legislator, and I was really sad to see her not win that election.
Yeah. Let's see. So last question I have here is, what kind of music do you listen to, or who are your favorite music artists?
Well, I listen to just about everything except country.
Okay.
Which is kind of weird for someone growing up in Oklahoma, I know.
Yeah.
My granddad, my mother's father, was a part of the board of directors for the Oklahoma Opry for the longest time. So I grew up listening to a lot of country music, and we got to go perform on the old Oklahoma Opry stage, and we did all sorts of fun stuff there, but it just had never been my cup of tea. But I'm a child of the 90s. I like my Beastie Boys. I like my Modest Mouse. I like, the Yeah Yeah Yeahs are one of my most favorite bands in the entire world. I'm a concert junkie. So even if I know one or two songs for somebody, if I can imagine that they're going to be a good jam band, then I want to go and watch it. And thankfully, my partner Ryan, he's gung ho and goes with me, and so we have a blast going and seeing a lot of concerts here in local music venues, and yeah.
That's cool.
But you're a heavy metal fan, if I recall, right?
Yes.
So who's your favorite?
Some of my favorite bands, Linkin Park, Limp Bizkit, as you can see back there, and right here. Korn, Slipknot, Chevelle, Breaking Benjamin, 3 Days Grace, bands like that.
Yeah.
Trying to think some of the yeah, like those type of bands. I listen to a lot of other heavier stuff too. Lately though, I've been listening to a lot of like old school hip hop, so like a lot of Public Enemy and
nice.
Beastie Boys. Actually, when it comes to Beastie Boys, when I was it was the summer of 2012, so it was like right before freshman year of high school, I bought License to Ill on CD, and I listened to it like all the time that summer. But I've been listening to some of the other stuff lately too. And also been listening to Alanis Morissette a lot lately.
Nice.
So,
nice.
Yeah.
Oh, I almost forgot. There's something I wanted to tell you about.
Yeah.
I have made friends with a wonderful lady named Debbie Dean. And Debbie Dean is a part of an organization called Team River Runner. And she dabbles with a lot of groups. And there's a group out there in Pottawatomie County, the Pottawatomie County Kayak Association, something like that. I'd have to get the actual name for you. So I do apologize to you guys out in Pottawatomie County. But we are teaming up to work, and I'm helping her advocate for putting in some ADA accessible kayak launches at some waterways all across the metro area. She's the spearhead for this. I'm just helping her out with some of my contacts and stuff. But one of the projects that they're working on is the lake out there in Shawnee, and it's so incredible what this group does. Team River Runner was started up at Walter Reed Medical Center to give it's just another nonprofit organization that seeks to help our vets, adjust back to civilian life, especially if they've become injured or have something going on, maybe like some mental health issues or things like that, but just having them connect to the community, have them finding a love of the outdoors and things like that. And, a lot of the people that they work with do need adaptive equipment, but, whenever we do things for people that do have these needs, making things adaptive is sometimes what is definitely needed, but sometimes we can do things to guarantee that they've got a certain level of autonomy. And that's what the group is trying to do right now with these ADA accessible launches, is make sure that people who want to be autonomous can have that opportunity to be autonomous. So keep your eyes out around there. It's a great opportunity for kids to get involved, to learn maybe a new sport, or maybe learn how to advocate with sports as the background. That's obviously how I got my start in advocating stuff when it wasn't public school, but done a lot of sports advocating, and it would be a great thing to enhance, the amenities for your community. So I might send you some information about that and get you in touch with
Please do.
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
Yeah. But thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah.
Where can we find you on social media, and what is your campaign website?
My campaign website is Tegan for OK, and it's FOR, not the number. And it's, I should probably just spell it out, right? T as in Tom, EGANFOROK.com. I can be found on Instagram and also on Facebook right now with my campaign websites, which will be Tegan Malone for House District 95. I've got a Twitter account, and I haven't really used it in a long time. Used to participate in the Oklahoma Ed chats a long time ago. Kind of got out of the habit of doing that just because life kind of got in the way. But I'm going to resurrect Twitter again, and my handle on Twitter is Tegan Rides the Bike. And I don't post a whole lot on there. So, but that's how
That's
you can find
good.
me. Yeah.
That's good. Yeah, it's good to stay away from Twitter, honestly.
I think so. I don't know. Like, just all the social medias lately are just kind of.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say Twitter's the worst. But yeah, I say that when I have like over 6,000 followers, so maybe I'm not the spokesperson to say Twitter is bad, but I will still say Twitter's not great. But yeah,
Yeah.
but I will let you